in terms of the party platform, what do you think makes a Republican in 2023 a Republican?
Well, in the platform, it says that we are the party of the Constitution. And when you look at the Constitution, the point of it is to restrain the government and maximize citizens' rights. And we have certain policy positions, like I am pro-life conception till natural death. That is part of our party platform. We are very much more, we are for, when we talk about America first, that does not mean that we're isolationist, or we somehow we don't care about the well-being of people in other countries. But we have to ensure that our policies put the well-being of American citizens first. Because as we see, our government is shipping billions of dollars overseas when we have people struggling in our country. That doesn't make any sense. My background is education. And I remember once I made a video, I was infuriated. I worked for Big Brothers Big Sisters temporarily. I was like a contractor. And I went to teach at a high school, and the tile was falling off the ceiling. So I'm in Detroit. These kids are in the community where they have higher poverty rate, and I go into the school library. There's no books, and the tile is falling off the ceiling. Yet you guys have money to send overseas, but you're not taking care of the people here in the city? This is ridiculous. We pay our tax dollars with the expectation that we're going to have a certain standard in our country. We don't have that. So that's what we're focused on. And we are focused on making sure that we protect the voice of the people. And that's one of the things you're seeing shift, because you're seeing some voices who are more libertarian kind of shifting and supporting more conservative-leaning people. Like you think of, for example, with where there's talking about, the vaccine. People had questions, irrespective of what you think about it. That's not my point. But we have a right to ask questions of the people who are making decisions over our lives. And so what we're seeing a shift in the Republican Party is getting back to the Constitution. When you think of my freedom of speech, my right to petition my government for a redress of grievances, my freedom of religion, we're talking about those core principles that fundamentally are American. That irrespective of what you believe, we have to protect those core tenets to protect our freedom. Because I think people have this belief that America is always going to be America. We're always going to be the top dog. We're always going to be the land of the free. That's not true. We could lose this like any. You think the Romans or the Persians or the Mayans or any other civilization throughout history, did you think they believed that they just suddenly that was going to be it? They were going to be on top forever? Absolutely, they believe that. So
let's touch on that. What do you believe are the biggest threats that Michigan faces today in terms of that?
Wow, I have a deep concern with the encroachment of the World Economic Forum. That is a massive concern of mine. Their organization, they're very clear, they want to build a global power. And, when you just think of logistics, one of the things we're big about is local control. Yeah. So we're really trying to empower the local person. And what do I mean by that? We want you to be deeply connected within your city. Because when you're deeply connected within your city, that is what flows out of that, is that you have more control in the county. Now you have more control of your representatives. But if we're taking massive power influence from some guy in Germany, I mean, what connection do I have to him? If I have a complaint, I'm going to write Klaus Schwab a letter? No, I have no mechanism to have my voice heard. This is why local control is so important. And when I see this organization, and I've read their writings, they had an article where they talk about doing away with private property. That is a problem. My rights to property, my rights to person are very, very critical to my liberty. And so when you have this company moving to shifting, they want to shift power to some global governance, that is not okay.
Do you see that as their end game?
Read their writing. That's the thing. I judge every person. We all judge. Sometimes we hear people say, don't judge, we all judge. That statement in of itself is a judgment. I judge by the fruit of the tree. That's it. It's all I look at is the fruit of the tree. And when I read their writings and the direction they're going in, it's more authoritarian. And that is concerning, that you have a global organization wanting to move our state into an authoritarian direction. So those are the things that concern me. What also concerns me, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 37. And it's like my generation left.
Yeah.
My generation left.
The brain drain.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. My generation left the state. And that has such an impact beyond what people believe. When we talk about protecting the family, right? think of protecting the mom, the dad, and the children, right? That nucleus that a child needs. But what about at the other spectrum of life? What about as people get older? Who looks after the seniors? Their children. How can they do that if they live in Arizona?
Yeah.
And those kids, those grandkids, they need their grandparents. How can they do that if they're 4 states away? So the economic condition of Michigan is faltering, but then our governor is turning to CCP-owned companies in the World Economic Forum to revitalize our economy. These entities, these groups, they are diametrically opposed to our Constitution. So when you're turning to a group like the World Economic Forum, or you're turning to companies who are tied to the Communist Chinese Party, it's not China. I want to be clear. It's not China. It's not the Chinese people. It's the Chinese Communist Party. And when you are tying to these groups to revitalize our state, that means we're beholden to them. That means they control us. And then that means that we, the people, don't have control over our government. And that is my big concern.
Former Senate Majority Leader Mike Shirkey, in his farewell speech, talked about the World Economic Forum, and he talked about his fear of one world government, one world currency, one world religion. So this is a fear that you also share.
Well, yeah, you think about it as like the move to digital currency. There's a balance, right? There's a balance between you want to have the free markets and let the free markets flow. But what happens is, what the World Economic Forum pushes is public-private partnership, where the government and corporations work together. And then the corporation is doing the bidding of the government. And the reason why that's dangerous is because the control over consumption and production are fundamental. We want to keep the control of consumption and production in the hands of the people. But when you have the public-private partnership, now the means of production and consumption, the control of that gets in the hands of the government. And we have to remember the government has the power of the gun. Because think about it. Ultimately, you and I can go and say we're going to do this and that. But if the police show up and arrest us, what do they have backing them? They have the power of arms.
Yeah.
And so that is a concern. So when you talk about the push for digital currency, I don't like that, because that means the government can monitor what you do. And you may say, well, I'm not going to do the wrong thing. Well, as history has shown us, what's considered right and wrong shifts. And what happens when you are viewed as being on the wrong side of a government opinion or issue? And they can issue control over your life. So that is a major concern of centralized global governance plus a push for a digital currency. I believe protecting paper currency is vital to our freedom. Because again, I'm sure all of us here, I'm sure you're a law-abiding citizen. I'm sure you're not going out committing crimes and doing things that are wrong. But what happens if our government shifts and what their agenda is, and suddenly you're on the wrong side of that? History has shown us.